Hello and welcome back to Orange Blossom Healing, the channel where I am excited to help you feel better with diet and lifestyle. So today we are going to talk about 10 spices that can help to lower your blood glucose levels. The reason you might want to do that is that it's not great to have blood sugar spikes regularly throughout the day. It contributes to poor metabolic health. It can create pre-diabetes and eventually type 2 diabetes, and it can cause lots of problems with our hormones. So we're going to talk a little bit about insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance, and I'm going to give you these 10 spices that perhaps you wouldn't consider will help you so much. So if you're interested in that, then stick around and let's have a look. Another thing worth saying today is that I am trying something different. I thought that this might be a cool space to talk about the spices so I can show you some key points. But I also am standing where you can hear the crazy wind today from my log fire. So I'm really hoping that the sound doesn't bother anybody, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. Okay, so if you want to look into the 10 spices and not watch any of the rest of this video, then I'm going to give them to you straight away. The first one is almonds. Yes, almonds are a spice. That is because a spice is defined as a dried seed, and an almond is actually just the seed from the fruit of the almond tree. So almond is number 1, basil is number 2, bay leaves are number 3, cinnamon is number 4, cumin is number 5, cacao is number 6, fenugreek seed is number 7, onion is number 8, garlic is number 9, and turmeric is number 10. So if you want to just go include all of those in your diet and not worry about anything else, then there you go. I wanted to start this video really explaining about insulin resistance and insulin sensitivity. So insulin sensitivity is what we want. That is a good thing. Okay, so let me just explain how this system works. When you eat any food, doesn't matter what it is, your brilliant body reacts to that by getting the pancreas to release a hormone called insulin. Insulin's job is to accompany glucose into your cells. So it accompanies glucose into your liver for processing and into your cells for energy. Now, when you are insulin sensitive, that means that you eat food, insulin is released by the pancreas and accompanies the glucose to the cells. You feel energized, you feel amazing. If you are insulin resistant, then when you're eating food and the pancreas is releasing the insulin, it's trying to take the glucose into the cell for energy, but the cell receptor, the outside of the cell, is blocking that glucose from getting in. And there are lots of reasons why that might be, and I talk about it in a couple of my other videos, which you can check out. But the bottom line for the sake of this video is that insulin resistance builds up slowly into pre-diabetes and then potentially into diabetes type 2. And of course, diabetes can lead to heart disease and stroke and many other problems. So that is not something that we want to be doing. There are loads of ways that you can reduce sugar spikes and that you can increase your insulin sensitivity. So there are some lifestyle factors that you can include and think about, and there are also foods that you can think about. So obviously, if you eat a big ball of ice cream, that is going to immediately spike your sugar and contribute to insulin resistance. But if you accompany that big ball of ice cream with something like nuts, which offer great protein, that will help to reduce the spike that the ice cream is causing. Obviously, good quality ice cream contains milk, which is full of good fat and protein itself anyway. So today the video is about spices, but it's really important to think about what you're eating and how you're accompanying your food in order to reduce the sugar spike. And this is something that the Glucose Goddess talks about all of the time, so her resources are awesome to check out if that's something that interests you. Something else just worth mentioning is that the measurement that you would see on your latest blood tests, if you've had any, is the hemoglobin A1C or HA1C. And what this looks at is your body's management of glucose over the past 3 months. So it's a really good indicator of whether your body is able to process glucose in the way that it should or whether it's struggling. Again, I have more information in this video about numbers and what you're looking for if that's something you're interested in. Okay, so let's dive into the spices, starting with almond. I'm going to try and not give you an information overload about each one and maybe just reference one study, but there are lots of studies for all of these spices. So I'm excited for you to look into that yourself and try and include them in your diet. So almonds, I just want to tell you about a study that was carried out where a percentage of the participants were given almonds and a percentage of the participants were not. So it was a direct study of taking almonds and not taking almonds. Those who were eating the almonds lost more body weight and had some other benefits, but also reduced their diabetes medications by 50%. They also saw an improvement in blood glucose levels and insulin levels. Almonds are super easy to include in your diet. I love almond butter. One of my favorite snacks is a banana covered in almond butter with some other superfoods on top. That's a great way to eat them. You can obviously eat almonds whole. You can include them in savory foods and in sweet foods. So hopefully that's an easy one. All right, so spice number 2 is basil. Basil's a simple one that has so many healing benefits, but in terms of blood glucose measurements, in the study that I'm going to reference, it significantly lowered the blood sugar of all participants. So basil is great for making pesto. You can also just sprinkle it raw on top of basically any salad or pasta or kind of Mediterranean vibe meal. And I also really like to use a drink where I just include water or sparkling water with basil and chia seeds and a little bit of lemon. And that is a perfect way to consume it as well. So that's spice number 2. Spice number 3 is bay leaves. So I've mentioned these before, and the bioactive compounds in bay leaves actually improve insulin sensitivity. So that whole system that we talked about at the beginning. That's because they also increase the uptake in the cells. So they actually help the cells to absorb that glucose when it's trying to get into the cell. They also improve glucose emptying. That is the speed at which the cell absorbs the glucose. And we want that to be slower in order for our metabolism and our body to feel more energized for longer. And it improves by the consumption of bay leaves. Bay leaves are an easy one to steep in tea. I think they have just really delicate flavor and are accompanied nicely by lemon. Or you can add them to any stew or meal that you slow cook and then just remove them at the end, and all of the power of the bay leaf will have passed through to the food that you eat afterwards. Easy. Spice number 4, I said, was cinnamon. Cinnamon is magic for lowering your glucose. So you want to be including that as much as possible. So cinnamon has been shown in many, many studies to reduce our HA1C, which I mentioned at the beginning. And it also reduces our red blood cells that have been frosted or glycated by the intake of sugar. Cinnamon has even been shown to reduce oxidation, which is kind of internal rusting of the cells. So cinnamon is great for stews if you're going for that kind of Moroccan tagine vibe, but also just include it on any dessert that you have. So the banana that I mentioned before, where I put the almond butter on top, I always sprinkle some cinnamon. It's great in yogurt. You can use it in rice desserts. And I really recommend that one every single day if you can get it in. Okay, then we're coming on to cumin, which has a slightly stronger, maybe more difficult to use flavor if you're not a fan of it, but it has actually shown in studies to be more effective than the medication given for diabetes mellitus, which is incredible. Cumin also showed in studies to reduce AGE by 40 to 90%. AGE is kind of a toxic cellular time bomb that happens when glucose warps proteins inside the body. So that is an incredible reduction from a spice. And cumin is one that we can include again in stews and slow cooked meals. I like to include it at the beginning when I'm kind of cooking my onion or my garlic in oil, but it's also one that you could enjoy in a tea if you like the flavor. Okay, so back to sweet stuff. The next one that I wanted to talk about was cacao, also shown in studies to help to regulate blood glucose levels, and an easy one to include. So cacao gives you a ton of benefits, and I'm talking about kind of 70% plus, so dark chocolate. But in Mexico, they include that in their cooking of savory food, like with chicken and in sauces. And you can really easily use dark chocolate, obviously, in all of your desserts. So a great excuse to have dark chocolate every single day. The next one is fenugreek seed. So more than 100 studies done both on animals and humans show that fenugreek seed has a positive impact on blood glucose levels. So not only does fenugreek reduce your HA1C levels, which we mentioned before, but it also helps for that slow absorption that gives you energy for longer, and it upregulates the insulin production from your pancreas. So this is helping your insulin sensitivity from different angles. Fenugreek seed is not a super easy one because you don't want to just eat them as they are. They're brilliant if you just roast them. Be careful not to burn them, but if you roast them lightly in a pan, they're delicious, again, in any stews or slow-cooked savory dishes. Once you've roasted them, you could also grind them up and add them to your baked goods. So sometimes I put them into bread because that's a really nice way to include them, and it just adds a lovely flavor. They're also great once they're roasted and ground, either sprinkled into dips or on top of salads. So they're quite easy once you've got them ready. And I like to just have them ready to go in a jar in the cupboard so that they're easier to include. The last 3 spices I'm going to mention together, onion, garlic, and turmeric, because these guys should really be a part of any healthy diet. They are, by any standards, superfoods. So all 3 of these contribute to reducing blood glucose levels, and they also help with reducing inflammation and increasing health in a number of ways in your body. So I would recommend always cooking with onion and garlic as a base for any dish that you're making. And you can get turmeric into your slow cooks and savory food, but another really easy way to include it is just to add it to heated milk, and then with a drop of maple syrup or a drop of honey, it's sweetened, and you can drink that as an alternative drink before bed to get all of the amazing benefits of turmeric. A 10-year diabetes prevention program study showed that lifestyle is so much more impactful than preventative medicine when it comes to diabetes type 2. That's not all that this is about, because it is important to manage your sugar spikes, even if you are not necessarily yet insulin resistant, and even if you don't have prediabetes or diabetes type 2. So the hormonal impact here is that when your insulin system is not working properly, it's also going to affect your sex hormones. So your progesterone, your testosterone, and your estrogen. So that's going to affect your fertility, your mood, your PMS symptoms, and so many other things about the way that you look and feel as a woman, just because you haven't got your sugar system regulated. So I hope that was helpful, and that you can get these spices into your diet somewhere to help with your sugar regulation. Spices are such a magic wand when it comes to healing, because they taste delicious. We can add them to our food, and in many cases, they have been scientifically shown to be more effective, if not as effective, as their pharmaceutical counterparts. So as far as I'm concerned, they are a magic wand for healing and well worth including as a preventative medicine. I hope you agree, and I hope that video was helpful, and I'll see you next time.